Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Louis D'Souza, and this is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today, and we are kicking off our week here with an interesting topic that we came up with a couple weeks ago, and then we had another topic in between, but now we're finally getting to it. It's going to be about vaccines, which is about to become a thing with all the COVID vaccines being created. But before we get to that, I had made a mistake last week. We had two emails that we received, one from Deborah, one from Sarah, and we realized we never really read Sarah's email. So Louis, we got to start off with Sarah today. So here's what she had to say, and it looks like it's aimed to you. She says, "I'll humor Louis with a question." She says, "I'd like to hear from him about pulse diagnosis and other diagnostic tools used in Jin Shin Jyutsu." And she says, my goal is to get insights into the way it all works so that I don't have to learn things by heart as much, like which meridian works for what illness, the numbering of the safety energy locks, for instance. I read his link to where tension starts in the body and how it spreads, this type of thing. So that's what she wants to hear about. And she says, thanks in advance. What can you tell her?
Well, Jin Shin Jyutsu, just to give people a brief idea of what it is, as somebody who may be new to the podcast. So it's a form of energy work, which you can work with the body, and it has 26 points, which you do have to learn off by heart. That's one of the first things I did in Jin Shin Jyutsu.
Yep.
They paired, so if there's 21 here, there's 21 here. You know, if there's 4 here, there's 4 here, etc. So there's 26 safety energy locks. So there's some basics you need to learn in Jin Shin Jyutsu. And it was fascinating because when I was excited about Jin Shin Jyutsu and I was excited about a lot of the different healing arts, one of the things that was important to me was pulses. And as like they can take your pulse, they take 3 fingers into the wrist like that, and they can tell you if your heart, kidney, lung, liver, or anything is suffering straining, or there's a problem with it, or etc. So you literally grab both hands like that, and then you go deeper when you listen to the deep pulses, and you got surface pulses. So there's a huge amount to know about pulses, and I was fascinated because I had heard when I was looking into it, the Ayurvedic doctors. I don't know if you know Ayurvedic doctors, but they're Indian doctors that have been passed down from father to son, and it was it still is an ancient healing art which has been brought to the public via Maharishi and his university. But the guy would take your pulses and say, I think you need to go to the loo before we continue. Your bladder's a bit full. And I was like, okay, how do they know this? And then you heard other stories like he reads this big businessman's pulses and he said, all you need to do is look at some sunrises and sunsets. Goodbye.
Okay.
And, literally, these fast-paced, stressed-out people, if they just got up early in the morning and sat and watched the sunrise and, took off a bit earlier and went and watched the sunset, a lot of things would be solved. So,
it's true.
There's a huge amount of information, and it's current information. It's the information at the time you take it. And it's very accurate once you can start reading it. So the pulse location for Ayurveda versus the pulse location of different arts like acupuncture and Jin Shin Jyutsu are slightly different. So we're one of the things you need to understand about pulses is you're reading different pulses from different areas of the body, and different energy lines and different energy focuses. Like the meridians are different to the chakras, which are different to the acupressure puncture points, which are different to Jin Shin Jyutsu's energy that they're working with. So you're working with different energies, and consequently you're going to be reading different information. And when you're reading the pulses, you read them in different areas. So there's a huge amount of information to know. So when you're doing 3 fingers and 3 fingers, you've got 6 pulses. When you go deeper, you've got another 6, so you've got 12. So there's 12 organs and body functions in the body. So you start realizing the link between the different groups, because there is a link about those 12 energy pulses. There's the organs, which are fairly simple, but then you've also got the triple warmer on the meridian, on the acupuncture pressure side, and then you've got Jin Shin Jyutsu's umbilicus area, and so you start having to correlate all these things together and put them together and start making some sense out of them. And believe me, in the beginning, it is a minefield. To make it simple for people is not that easy. I went on pulse courses, full on 3 days where they only talked about pulses and nothing else. So there's a huge amount of information to know. So I don't know how to put it in the simplest way, but top finger, when you working with it is bust line, waistline, and hip line. So those 3 fingers, it's bust line, waistline, hip line when you're feeling them. So you can immediately get an idea if it's top, middle. So everything can be kind of broken down into 3. So if you have a look at your fingers, you've got 1, 2, 3 joints.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is broken into 3s in the body. So you've got 1, 2, 3. The hand, the lower arm, and the top arm. So there's a whole lot of things about broken into 3s. So when you're working with the pulses, you can kind of see which one of those 3 areas is taking more strain than others. So as I say, there's a huge amount of information, and to try cram it into a law of attraction course.
Just a little bit of an ask there. Yeah.
But, I just thought I would paint a picture of the complexity of it, because when I looked at Jin Shin Jyutsu initially, I was looking at the Margaret Teagarden Jin Shin Jyutsu version, which is a breakaway faction, and she didn't have pulses in it at all. So she had decided that this is so complicated, I believe, and that she would just push it all to the side. And I thought, no, this is not right. I've got to be with a group that looks at pulses. So I went to the main Jin Shin Jyutsu group that does, of course, look with pulses. And it's a very, very important part of Jin Shin Jyutsu, is starting to understand that. And it is a lifelong study for some people. Some people pick it up just like that, as it is with most things in life. Some people are just really in tune with that aspect, and some people aren't. And
they just
I was in the middle. I didn't get it kind of in the beginning, and then I started getting it quite nicely in the end, where my wife immediately went in and she could read these things straight away, which is like, wow.
Yeah.
I hate you.
It is impressive when someone can do that.
Yeah. It's just a very different awareness, like my teacher who taught me the most, Kali, she will say, "Ooh, this feels like water going through a rock." It's like, what does that mean? But it's so clear to her. She has this incredible ability to completely understand the pulses and take them to a really another level, which is really great. It's lovely when you get people like that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if that actually does what Sarah wanted to accomplish, but at least she has an idea of why it won't be able to do it quite as easily as she had in mind. But hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah, the 26 safety energy locks anybody can learn, and they're really easy. There's a whole method of going from top of the body down to the back, up the back, down the front, up the back, down the front. And when you're finished, you've got the 26. But it's a really nice formula and a way to understand the energy in the body, the 26 safety energy locks. Ask your teacher to talk about going up, going down, and counting the safety energy locks as you go around from the 1 to 26, because there's a certain amount that go from bottom to top, top to bottom. And as you go around 3 or 4 times, you cover the whole 26. But it's very easy once you understand that little method. It'll help you.
I take it too. This is not something you want to try to pick up from a book. You really need a live teacher to teach it to you. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I've mentioned that before, that Jin Shin Jyutsu is really something like yoga and a lot of the other arts. you really need a teacher. You need somebody in front of you to touch you and feel you and show you, and you need to watch them and all the rest of it. Once you're in that scenario, I mean, they've got 5-day courses. Initially, it's just a little self-help, so they teach you to do it yourself. Those are 1-day courses, and then you do 5 days, and there's nothing else besides a 1-day self-help, a 5-day full-on course, or a 3-day special topic. So once you've done a 5-day, then you can start going 5 days. I think that you can start going on the special topic courses. So it's really interesting. Once you've done 5 days, you're qualified. There's no test or anything, but you have to do 5 days, and then you can start having your own practice. And I like that concept. No tests or whatever, but if you've stuck it out for 5 days, you've really started to grasp it.
Yeah.
It was fascinating, Walt, because I went on my first 5-day and I was a stress ball. I had been on the little self-help 1 day, got huge results for myself, dived straight into the 5-day. And, I was starting to relieve all the stress, all the tension under my eyes, the back pain, my alopecia, a 50-cent piece, no hair on 5 places on my head, all grew back. And, I got rid of my incredible back pain. If I put my head down like that to get into the car, etc., I'd literally be in tears of pain. It was so bad.
Wow.
There was lots of other issues in my health with breathing and asthma and all the rest of it. And, I started getting so much relief in all these. I went on that 5-day and I absolutely integrated it, and I learned, and I just thrived on it. I didn't understand a thing. By the way, your first 5-day, you're absolutely swamped. You don't understand a thing. But, bits and pieces came in there, and you kind of like playing with them. And then it was about 6 months later, I went to another one, and the people said they could hardly recognize me because I was so much more harmonized and balanced that I was like cheese and chalk between the two.
Wow.
It was so powerful because I went on a spiritual healing course when I was young, 22 years old. And the guy said to me, "Oh, you'll understand everything about energy by the time you finish for the weekend." And I understood nothing. I was like totally miffed with the guy. You said I would understand energy by the end of the weekend, and I understand even less. So, I spent years kind of pushing it away and saying, "No, this is not for me. It's rubbish. I won't get it," or whatever. And then I bumped into a little book. Somebody said, if you like Donna Eden. So Donna Eden's a lot to do with tapping, the 3 taps in your chest and your side. So those 3 taps brought a lot of energy to me and unlocked a lot of things. So somebody said, if you want to go further than Donna Eden, try Jin Shin Jyutsu. And they gave me a little nurse's book. And I had warts on my foot that I'd had for 2 years. And I went to the doctor and he cut one out because it was in the big toe. It was a really awkward place, when you put pressure on it every day. So he cut it out, but it grew back within like a month or so. And I was like, oh. Yeah. And then Jin Shin Jyutsu, there's a simple hold on the foot. So you just put your fingers on 2 parts, one under the ankle and the other one under the calf. So you put your one leg onto your knee and you put your 2 hands there. It's just straight up. And half an hour of that every day. Within a week, they both vanished completely.
Wow.
Totally, absolutely, utterly. And I was like, oh, this stuff's for me. This works.
And you understood it. That was even better.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it was really so simple. It's just said, get rid of bunions, warts, verrucas or whatever, all that kind of stuff. Just gets the energy going down the leg again. So that the energy can clear whatever's misaligned there. And, my athlete's foot vanished as well, which I'd been having for years. And I was like, wow, this stuff works.
Very cool. All right. Okay. Well, then I think we gave Sarah her money's worth. So hopefully she got something out of that. I think the biggest message in there is take the course. It's worth it. From everything you're saying, I would say take the course. It's just
absolutely. It's life-changing. It's really, if you wanted to take personal responsibility of your own health in a gentle, harmonious way that's not tiny little pinpoints. I mean, forget about the pulses initially. Just learn the 26 safety energy locks and you'll be rocking. Absolutely cool. Rocking. Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. Well, then let's get on to our main topic, which was one that you kind of came up with in reference to something I said about 2 weeks ago, and we just did it kind of offhand saying, let's do that as a topic. And then we had something else come up last week. And so we saved it for this week. And it's the concept of vaccines. And there's a lot of people out there, particularly now that we are approaching vaccines being commercially available for the COVID virus. A lot of people who are becoming very aware of the tension, I guess you might call it, between people who are pro-vaccine and people who are anti-vaccine, and it tends to have almost a. I mean, it's not quite as bad as presidential elections, but it does tend to kind of pull people apart a little bit. So we figured we'd try to bring them back together again a little bit. Not a lot, just a little. But what when you thought of the idea of doing anti-vax versus pro-vax, what was going through your head? I mean, did you have a particular goal or idea in mind?
Well, I wanted to put things in perspective. First of all, if vaccines weren't around in humanity, we wouldn't be, I'd say about 50% of us probably wouldn't be here today. So that's the perspective angle. It's easy to absolutely annihilate these vaccines and all the rest of it, but they really have had a place in the past with the chickenpox and all the rest of it, all the different vaccines and stuff that we've taken over the years.
Smallpox, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole range of them, and I'm not medical and I don't profess to know much about them, but I do know that if we hadn't taken them as a humanity along the way, I believe that a lot of us wouldn't be here today. So there is a place for vaccines.
In fact, it's worth noting that smallpox itself was eradicated, I think, in the 1980s, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was considered to be the single greatest medical achievement of the 20th century, eliminating a disease so that it wasn't anywhere in the world. I mean, as I understand it, there are 2 labs in the world. There may be more now, but at the time that I heard, there were 2 labs, one in Russia, one here in the United States, that had samples of smallpox, and that was it. That was the only smallpox in the world. You think about that, that is quite an achievement. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due.
And the way they've done it, and I know a lot of people know a lot more than me, but as far as I understand, is they put a little bit of the virus in you, small enough amounts that your antibodies can go build up, remove it.
It's usually dead too. It's already been killed off. It's just that the stuff is there, so your body can learn how to latch onto it and get rid of it.
I didn't even know that, but that's the basic philosophy. So you're getting your own body to attack something and to build up a resistance to it, etc., and an ability to fight it if it does come in the major way. So to understand vaccines, to me, I've really simplified it, and I'm sure some guys know a huge amount more than me. But I wanted to put it in context. So the problem is, I think in America at the moment, sometimes they're asking you to vaccinate against 20 to 40 different types of things. So you're now taking 20 to 40 of these things. Now, what I believe should be happening is the World Health Organization should say, these ones are essential. These ones are optional. So that we've now got an understanding of, none of us want to pump our kids with about 40 different types of poisons or viruses, whatever you want to call them. So nobody really wants to do that to their kids. So, if we knew which ones are absolutely essential and take those, then that's fine. So I think that is a broad outline initially of what we should look at. So the important thing is information. We want clarity on what is essential, what is voluntary, top up for different reasons, etc. If your area is a little more susceptible to one or the other, you may think of adding that from the extra optional ones, but we need to have enough information so we can make a decision on this. So when my first daughter was born, I had her vaccinated, and then there's a Jin Shin flow, which it'll eradicate any of the negative side effects of the the vaccine. The vaccine. So it's really important to understand that there are alternative options to deal with putting the virus inside them and helping the individual build up that immunity while at the same time having no side effects, no negative side effects. So you really want to explore your options. There's homeopathic things you can take after you've taken the vaccines. There's, sometimes kids have a bit of a temperature, etc., and that's the body's natural defense mechanism. But if you give them some like echinacea, which will help deal with all of the from a natural perspective and work around it. But from a vaccine point of view, we all need to make our own decisions. There are people who've taken vaccines and their kid is not being able to talk, or, it's affected part of their brains. And there's like studies that go on. And, I've got a friend who's in Norway, and she as a kid took this. And ever since then, she's been mentally handicapped and been in a wheelchair. And there's 1 in 50,000 or something that it affects. And she was one of them. So, there's this chance that something negative may happen to you, and you have to understand all that. It's nobody tells you when they give it to you. They just said, no, you need to take this. And then afterwards you land up with being in a wheelchair for the rest of your life and mentally handicapped. So, it's a toughie. It really is. You've got to make these decisions for your children and people you love. And there are very small percentage of errors with some of them. And I can't believe that the COVID virus has been tested extensively enough to go into humanity yet. But that's my very limited knowledge of what is and isn't. But usually they take years to test it on different animals, etc., before it goes to humans. And then there's a whole human trial. And then eventually it's allowed to go into the public. But if somebody says a COVID-19 vaccine is ready, I'd be very skeptical personally.
Well, I also want to take a moment to remind people that we are experts on the law of attraction. We're not medical professionals, so we're not dispensing medical advice here. These are our own personal opinions. And anytime that you're looking for medical advice on this stuff, you should definitely consult with your doctor. But with that disclaimer out of the way, I think we should also mention that since we are a law of attraction show, an energy show, if you will, we should be looking a little bit at the energy side of this thing too, because we certainly, as advocates of law of attraction, teaching and conscious creation and so forth, believe that our minds play a major role in this overall process. So I want to bring that in for a bit. And one of the things I want to mention early on is I did an interview with a doctor at the University of Maryland back in May, just as COVID was really peaking. And my purpose of the interview was I had found out that she is a researcher who is researching the interplay between COVID and the placebo and nocebo effects. And I really was curious about that to see what was going to happen. Well, obviously, that's a study that's been going on. They've actually completed the study portion in the sense of the testing of subjects and so forth. They've written their initial findings up in their initial drafts of their papers, and now they're passing the papers around amongst all the researchers. And so it's going to be a while before we hear anything about that. The last piece of information I had from her, this is Dr. Luana Koloka. She said probably at least 3 or 4 months, and that was in September. So at least December or January would be where I'm expecting to see something, maybe even February. So it's going to be a while before we hear something, although it won't be all that far down the road. But I was really curious to interview her primarily because she is one of the few people who focuses on researching placebo and nocebo. And we do know that there are, for instance, the work of Dr. Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza is involved in bringing in the research that it has been done in these areas. It's not, there has been tons and tons of research done, but there has been some significant research done, and he shares that with his audience. And I love the fact that there are now more medical researchers who are investigating it. They're still very much in the minority. It's not a major part of the medical industry, but I'm just impressed that they're doing it at all. And I think there's tremendous hope for whatever comes out of that particular study and the other studies that are being done, simply because from what I understand about how energy works, how vibration works, I've got to believe that how we feel and how we think and how we are, what kind of vibrational level we're at when we're interacting with questions about vaccines or anything else medical, is going to directly impact how our lives play out medically and health speaking. So I want to bring that piece in, see what your take is on that. And I don't want to claim that I see any particular definite answers where vibration and COVID are concerned. Obviously, COVID is a pretty hot topic, and I'd be loath to start saying, well, I've got all the answers on that one. But I do have my own opinions. I don't necessarily share all of them, but I do have my own opinions. And in general, I'll say, I think mindset plays a big difference. I kind of suspect, I don't know what the nature of her study is, but I kind of suspect one of the things that may come out of that study is perhaps a little bit of a surprise for the medical field, that the way the doctor thinks and the way that the patient thinks directly impacts, in my guesstimation, I don't know this yet, but I'm guessing that it's going to directly impact both infection rates and survival rates. And I'll be really curious to see if that's what comes out. But anyway, I've done enough talking. What do you think about the vibrational side?
So, I've maybe, I don't know if you remember, but I've studied quite a lot of Carolyn Mace's work.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Carolyn Mace, first of all, is a medical intuitive. A medical intuitive is a doctor. Carolyn Mace said, I'm a medical intuitive. So immediately he said to her, how good are you? And she said, I don't know. So,
well, that's an honest answer.
So he took down her number, and one day he gives her a call and he says, hi, Carolyn, I've got Jennifer here, and she's 23 years old. And so Carolyn says, that's enough. At 23, at 20 years old, she had a miscarriage, and and she tells the whole medical history of this wow. lady who she's just heard, the name yep. and an age, and she didn't need anything more than that. And she gives her, and he says, thanks, Di, puts down the phone. And she said she had no idea if she was good, bad, right, or indifferent. She had nothing. he just put down the phone. That's it. And then a month later, she gets another call from him or so, and he says to her, hey, I have Tim, he's whatever, 40. And she said, that's enough. And she rambles on about the whole medical history of this guy. And eventually she says, the only reason I knew I must be good or I got something right is he kept on calling me.
Yeah, right.
And of course,
this is really high-end research going on here. We go based on whether or not they call back. Okay, yeah, I guess I got something good. Okay.
So she was able to tap in instantly into the medical history of an individual and rattle off everything. Wow. And she was very dispassionate about the whole thing. She wasn't, fully integrated. She said she hated getting people come to her directly because she didn't know what to say to them. She could give them all this information, but how you deal with the emotional outfall of this, she was not brilliant at it.
Yeah.
But what she did, she studied history and she's fascinated with it. And she looked at the, AIDS, and she started to realize that AIDS was predominant in areas and countries that felt that they were abused. So, countries where you've got dictators and where you've got people who completely run the show and bully and push the people around, and the people were feeling vulnerable and susceptible and weak in that area, they were the guys who got AIDS. And it was very, very interesting because, the gay community got it a lot, and they was very felt put upon and, suppressed, etc. So she started putting all these pieces of the puzzle together, and you start seeing energetically, if you agree with her or not, that's up to you. But you start seeing energetically what the different viruses are energetically or vibrationally affecting different people and different demographics. And it is very much, when you do a clear study like Carolyn Mace has, on the different viruses, etc., that there's a very definite link to all that. And from a vibrational and an LOA point of view, it makes complete sense that that link is there. So, Louise Hay tried to put it together with the mental aberration versus the physical aberration. So, when I had when I had a hernia, I was instantly guided to go to Louise Hay's book. And one of the things it says there's two aspects, and one of the aspects was ruptured relationships. And just before the hernia arrived, I just had a ruptured relationship with a family member and a close friend. So I had two ruptured relationships, and then I had a hernia. So, there's so many different ways of looking at things, and specifically from an energetic point of view. And, COVID-19 is one of those ones where, you're wondering where this is going as well, because it's new. People are going to be looking at it and seeing what the demographics is, et cetera, et cetera. It was old people in the beginning, and now it's changing. And, so, there's a whole lot of information which we need to accumulate to see where that's all going at the moment. So
how does this, I mean, I don't think we can honestly say, here's our answer on if you're pro-vaccine, if you're anti-vaccine, here's what you should be thinking. I don't think that really can be our role to play out that game. But I think we can describe what we're thinking about it and leave it to listeners and viewers to decide for themselves what they're interested in. So let's just go with that for a little bit. I'm going to lead off. I'm going to say for myself, I kind of in the same camp as you. I'm not going to be jumping right on the bandwagon as soon as the vaccine comes out. I'll let the rest of the population be the guinea pigs.
There'll be those that'll be very eager to have it.
And I'll tell you something else I think is going to happen. And I guess this is sort of a prediction, you might say. I have a feeling, well, it's a combination of feeling and just based on what I've been reading too. I have a feeling that there's going to be, the vaccines are going to come out. Every indication is that there's a number of them that are going to have very, very high success rates. And I suspect that the people who are going to get the vaccines first are going to be kind of in two groups. One group is going to be people who are deemed by the government or medical professionals or whatever to be the most essential recipients. So they'll get it first. The other group is going to be people who are most receptive to having a vaccine, the ones who really want it. They're going to be lining up for it first. And I just have this feeling that they are the ones who, from an energetic point of view, most need it. In other words, they have bought so strongly into the idea, into the possibilities of what a vaccine can do for them, that they're in total alignment with having positive results coming from having a vaccine. And if you get a large enough population doing that, I suspect we see a massive reduction in infection rates and death rates within weeks of the vaccine
if
coming
for
out.
No other reason, Walt, than their belief structure.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah. Now, is there also a medical side to it? Probably. Yeah, I would think. But I think the energetic side is going to actually make it happen faster, perhaps, than it normally would, just because there's going to be a huge belief associated with it. So I firmly believe that 98% of all this COVID stuff is going to be behind us by spring of 2021. And that by like late winter of 2021, we're all going to see this thing's almost over. It's going to be that quick, especially with all, I mean, yes, I have similar reservations to what you have about, people jumping onto the vaccine bandwagon with something that's been tested so little. But nevertheless, I think there's going to be this huge, huge improvement in the incidence of disease, the incidence of infection, the incidence of death, the incidence of survival rates. Everything is just going to tremendously shift in a very, very short period of time. So I get the feeling you're on the same wavelength. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. The interesting thing that I learned from Carolyn Mace, though, She says the lower three chakras, so your base, underneath your navel, and your solar plexus, that people that are predominantly working on the lower chakras in their life, they need medical medicine. But the people that are working from the heart, throat, and third eye chakra, and the top one, they react better to energy medicine.
What do you mean by? I'm not quite sure what you were saying there. What do you mean when you say that they're working with the lower three chakras or working with upper chakras? What do you mean working with? What does that mean?
So, in other words, predominantly, if you understand the lower three chakras, the base chakra is a lot about the Mullahat, grounding and centering and all the rest of it. So Buddhists were taught initially to wear orange robes. So the orange robes were the base chakra, and the base chakra is all about basics, about grounding, about centering, and anybody and everybody can do that. And that's why Buddha brought in the initial concept of, we all start at the beginning. I'm going to start everybody at the beginning. I'm going to teach you something that anybody and everybody can learn. It's just grounding and centering. And that's the base chakra. So the next one is all about nurturing and caring and all the rest of it, which is another very basic human attribute. And then you go to the solar plexus. So those three people that are working a lot in those areas are going to be very susceptible to the headache tablet, the antibiotics, and all the rest of it. But once you start working on your heart chakra, or your throat and your voice and your expression and your thoughts and your mind area, then you really want to be the energy medicine. So working with your chakras, or working with Jin Shin Jyutsu, or working with Reiki, or working with some of the energy forms, then you are going to be more susceptible, more effective. Because you remember how I've got my whole scale of, my physical, my epiphanies, from physical to water to breathing to thoughts. So you've got the whole scales going up from physical to non-physical. So when I'm working very, very physically with food, etc., I don't get anywhere near as good a results than when I'm working with thoughts and positivity and non-physical stuff. It becomes very, very, very apparent in your life that you are now getting quicker and better results from different forms of healing or relief and release, as Abraham Hicks would put it, etc. I don't know if I'm explaining myself particularly well, but I think maybe you can get the gist of all of this. But basically, if I'm just working, if I'm taking my hand now and doing it anti-clockwise over my chakras, the relief and release I get is huge. But if I take a tablet or whatever like that, it has like no effect on me whatsoever anymore. it just does nothing. And, if somebody see me just doing this, they're like, what you guys on? You're mad, Come on, stop kidding yourself. But I can feel all the changes and the relief and the release going on in my body. And it's absolutely exactly what I need. And I know it, and I can feel it. And I'm totally aware of it. So, how to explain all this to people is not that easy until you've had your own experiences of it all. It's just some hoo-ha that somebody is talking about, which I understand and I appreciate, because I was there for so many years. I was in that place of, this energy stuff doesn't work for me, it's rubbish and all the rest of it. And then you slowly have experience, soft experience, that things, this works. Like my crystal story, I love telling that. I think I've told it once before on the show. When I was getting into the new age stuff in about 22, 23, 24, 25, I got crystals. I went to the show and I got a crystal here and I got a crystal there and I got one here and got one there. And I put them and I played with them and I held them and I meditated with them and I got nothing. These things were useless, absolute stone. So I said, I'll give them one last try. I put them all together, put them under my pillow, and I went to sleep. And I had these dreams of the most vivid colors that I've never seen in this human life before. Absolutely everything that I was doing in my dreams had these colors of incredible intensity. And I was absolutely scared out of my bracket. I took all these crystals. I went into the garden, dug a hole, and I put them in.
Buried them. Oh, that's
so
funny.
You know, I now have an appreciation for crystals, and I've had some incredible experiences with crystals after that. But you know, there's a point in your life where the disbelief and belief starts changing, and it's something that happens as you go along, and it's a step-by-step process. It doesn't all happen at the same time, and you know, you just play with it.
And now it's a particular corner of your garden that's absolutely thrilled about crystals, and the rest of the garden is saying, what on earth are they talking about?
So a lot of my plants all over the house have got crystals in them, and they spread all over the place now. I don't use crystals much anymore at all, because I've learned to tap into that power within me without using anything outside me. I don't need incense. I don't need crystals. I don't need anything anymore. None of that's necessary. If I've got my hands and my mind that I can breathe, I can tap into the power that creates worlds.
Do you think it's valuable to start with that kind of stuff?
It's a good question. I feel it's such baby stuff now that I'm like wondering, did I get much out of it?
Well, you apparently got enough out of it that you had to go bury the crystals in the back garden. So, I mean, there was something.
It's not that's not what I meant by getting out of it. So that was one mind-blowing experience that proved to me that they did have a power. But beyond that, I don't know. You know, I still didn't find a very channable, repeatable way of using the crystals to get a certain result. But when I started working with my mind, and when I started working with the energy and working with my hands to heal me, I got some incredible repeatable. You know, I can sit here. It's not that easy to do it online right now, but if I do this for a while, you'll see tears streaming down my eyes. There's nothing to do with emotion. It's to do with relief and release. And it's a common experience of relief and release is to yawn, to have tears coming down your eyes, to feel more relaxed. You know, there's quite a few very common experiences when you're getting this relief and release that
By the way,
very quantifiable.
I want to interrupt you for just a second, because I'm reminded of the fact that probably 98% of our listeners are listeners. They don't see the videos. So when you say do this, they don't see what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So we should actually describe for them what it is that we're doing.
So all you do is you're taking your hand anti-clockwise over your chakras. So you can do that all the way to your third eye chakra, but your top one, if you're a male, you do it the opposite way around. But again, I'm getting into things that really need a bit of time of explaining. So once you're doing them anti-clockwise, you're cleaning out the past stuff. You know, a lot of people want to dig into the past. But this is a simple way of not focusing in on any of it, but you're just clearing out the past. When I do my second chakra and I really work on it, and when I really work on it, just spend a little more time on it, I usually only spend about 1 to 2 minutes on each chakra. Okay, there's 7 of them, so it adds up. But if I work quite a bit on my solar plexus, it's fascinating. My kids are always, during the day, they will go and they want to put their head against my stomach, or the solar plexus area. Not the solar plexus, the one below that. So your second one up, which in martial arts is called the Taitian. And I've always liked using that one. But, you know, that is the nurturing one. That's the mother one. That's the one that's all about being like the mother, like the common role of a mother to a child. And the kids always find a way of putting their head against my stomach, or at least one of them or both of them during the day. and it's like clockwork. It just happens every single time, and it's something that you can start getting the sense of, wow, okay, starting to get a feel of what that chakra is. Although Abraham Hicks kind of poo-poos chakras, I've kind of got quite a respect for them. And there's actually 117 or something of them, if you break them down. And if you look at Jin Shin Jyutsu, you've got 26 safety energy locks, which are split in two, so you've actually got double that. And then you've got all the other flows and all the rest of it that you can do with them. And so in Jin Shin Jyutsu, we say we've got 144,000 different energies going in the body. So none of that's really important. So you start to learn to do the basics, and then you start having your experiences, and so you go on from there. And it's a journey. It's a journey that is the most fascinating one, because we've explored almost everything else on this planet outside of us, but we haven't really touched the surface of going inside yet. And this is what a lot of people are doing on this planet. There's a huge amount of people that are into the stuff now.
That's
and
true.
You can look at it from so many different angles, and people can come in from Reiki to Jinshin to martial arts to, there's almost any amount of avenues that you can come into this, the study of this inner world that we all have.
Yeah. We're a little bit off of the topic of vaccine and anti-vaccine, but
not really, because when you look
I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that in a minute. So let me just complete the thought that I had here. Even though we're seem, let's put it this way, we seem to be off the topic. We really aren't. We're going to connect it back in just a moment. But I like what you were saying, and I wanted to kind of amplify it a little bit. And that is based on the conversation that we had in our last episode with Linda and Rita. Rita gave us an entire presentation on the higher heart chakra, which I guess is a minor chakra just above the third. I'm not sure. I don't know them that well. But what was fascinating to me is that she was reading from some literature she'd found on the topic. And all the literature she was talking about had to do with being a conscious creator. It was about what you're attracting, what you're focusing on, how the stuff comes into your life and you're focusing on. And I'm saying, why don't we actually have this higher heart chakra as part of LOI? This is really interesting. And in fact, I've asked her to do some more research so she can give us some more information on the next show that she and Linda are on. But just really fascinating how, I mean, I was never one who believed much in all this chakra stuff. Every time I heard about, I always smiled politely and my eyes did a little eye roll in the background that nobody could see, because I just didn't buy into it. But the more that I've heard and the more that I've experienced directly through other people leading me through stuff has led me to believe I don't know anything about my body. The more I learn, the more I realize I have a lot more to learn. It doesn't matter whether I look at it from a medical perspective, from an energetic perspective, no matter what perspective we're talking about. I have so much to learn because it just keeps increasing in quantity exponentially every time I learn something new.
But Walt, do you see the perfection of that? That statement is profound. So what you know is that much.
Yeah.
What you don't know is infinite. And if you keep yourself open to learning that new stuff, that stuff you don't know, that infinite amount of stuff, then,
yes. So
you
let's
can
take that,
grow and change and learn and become someone new and still feel that there's so much more you haven't even touched. It's just so exciting.
So let's take that back to vaccines now. Vaccines or being anti-vaccine, depending on what your viewpoint is on it. If we bring to the whole question of vaccines, it's not just an energetic perspective. It's like you said, it's a perspective of, wow, there is so much to know. And there's so much to borrow the Abraham phrase, so much to align with, so much to get excited about, so much to focus on. It almost gets to the point where you say to yourself, I don't have any time to focus on all the fear that's being generated. I have all this other stuff to pay attention to. And by the way, as I'm paying attention to it, I'm actually getting physical value out of it, as well as mental value out of it. So I guess my point is, it doesn't really matter whether you're anti-vax or pro-vax. Are you pro-energy? Are you pro-probing? Are you pro-intuitiveness?
I like
Are you
that, pro-probing. That is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you willing to probe the power of your mind, of your spirit, of your energy? Are you willing to probe all that? Because if you are, well, first of all, you're going to heal a lot quicker than anybody else. Second of all, you're going to be a lot less likely to get sick than anybody else. And third,
Plus,
even
if
if you do
somebody
get
gives you a
bit,
vaccine that has some naughty stuff in it, you can remove it.
yeah, we'll
You
stay
can
away from the naughty
eliminate it. You
vaccines.
can completely annihilate it.
But the point is, you're coming at this with all of your tools. You're not just coming at it from with a tool of what does my doctor tell me. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, why limit yourself to one tool when you got all the tools?
Mm.
Use the whole toolbox. That's what I was going to.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to trust doctors, specifically from that book that I've mentioned before, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. The average
No.
age of the death of a medical doctor in
Yeah.
America is 53 years old, etc. Why would you trust somebody if you want to lose weight and you're going to this fat doctor? And you just, then it's very difficult to trust these guys. I'm sorry. You've got this obese person trying to tell you how obesity's bad for you and you've got to change this and do that and do the other. You just don't feel right about the whole thing.
Well, they can sympathize with you anyway. They know how you feel.
They can empathize, yes, but they usually don't even do that because they're under the clock in the United Kingdom to put you in 5 minutes maximum, and then they kick you out the door and make sure that you take some tablets so that they get a kickback from the drop points, as they call them in the UK.
Drop points. Okay.
Drop points. I don't know why it's called drop points, but if they get you to go on some tablets or other, they get drop points for it from a pharmaceutical company or something.
Are those like brownie points? No, forget that.
Well, they get money for it in the end of the day, I think. So that's
okay. So it's more than brownie points. Because I've never figured out where you could turn in brownie points. So
But I don't fully understand those whole drop points, so I'm not going to lay my head on a noose for all this. But,
I don't blame you.
But in the end of the day, there should be no recompense at all in any shape or form for giving out. You should actually get recompense if you don't hand out all this stuff to the people left, right, and center. That's my philosophy.
That's an interesting approach. Yeah, that'll generate a little
complete turn it on its head. And of course, that'll annihilate the drug companies. But hey, I'm not too in favor of that.
I sense a slight bias going on there. Yes.
Well, once you've started working with energy and you found alternative tools to work in so many different facets of your life, you start questioning the validity of the entire business model of it, and you start looking at it in a way that 70% at least of the United States is taking some medication, which is just mind-blowing to me. It's just, for somebody who's only taken headache tablets and then I've broken them up into quarters and some antibiotics because it was force-fed to me as a kid, it just blows my mind that people are absolutely living on these things on a day-to-day basis. I just don't really get it. I just, the thing that I see people don't get is that your body is the biggest pharmaceutical chemist laboratory in the world, bar none. There's nothing that comes near it in any shape or form. And just from changing your thinking, changing your breathing, you can change that whole chemistry within your whole body, and just learning a few more things like Jin Shin Jyutsu or holding your spine in certain places can bring euphoria and, different feelings that you've never dreamt of. You can tap in to this chemistry in your body in so many different ways that doesn't have side effects. And, it just takes a little bit of study of the body and moving forward with it. I've often thought that I'm cheating now because I've just got too much knowledge and understanding that I don't need all this stuff anymore. I must be cheating. I got over that. It didn't last long. It was like a month or two that I felt like that. But it strongly left an impression on my mind that, I can now cheat very successfully and well and thoroughly. And, I wish people would jump on the bandwagon of taking more understanding of the body. Start reading the manual. There's so many good manuals out there on the body that are way beyond what the medical profession can give you.
Well, like you mentioned a moment ago,
physiology manual is just like,
well, yeah,
very rudimentary basics, guys.
But I think it's fair to say we have this large increase. You mentioned it before. There's a large interest, and it's an increasing interest in alternatives to medicine and in medicine itself. I mean, the whole COVID situation, all of a sudden, every conversation that I hear as I'm taking a walk is people talking about COVID. So clearly, it has entered the public discourse, shall we say. But also, there's been a tremendous increase in the amount of stuff people are studying along the lines of what we talk about. And I think that, Linda Armstrong, I mentioned her a moment ago, she and Rita have both talked about how this entire year is about this massive vibration rising, meaning that the whole planet is involved and engaged in learning more about this stuff. Not the whole population necessarily, but larger chunks of the population are paying more and more attention to this kind of thing. And that is leading to an average vibration that is overall higher than what we had before. Is that what people are experiencing? I mean, a lot of people are terrified, but I think I heard a joke from somebody saying that they're going to make sure to stay up for New Year's this year because they want to make sure that 2020 actually goes away. That gives an idea of how a lot of people are looking at the year. But by the same token, I look at it from the point of view, this has been a very good year. And that's not the popular take on it, but I think it's been a good year because I said from the beginning it was going to be a year of clarity. We have achieved tremendous amounts of clarity that we did not as a population have a year ago. And that
absolutely,
clarity,
Walt, absolutely.
It can only be for the
clearly.
Good. Yeah.
And of course, 2020 from an optometrist point of view is perfect vision.
Well, actually, it's average vision, but that's all right. That's another topic.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I always thought it was perfect vision.
No, it's minimum baseline, actually.
Oh, okay. 2020 is minimum baseline.
2010 is actually better. If you have 2010 vision, you have the potential to be a pro sports hero because your vision is so acute, you can do all kinds of great stuff. But yeah.
Well, I think if we even get to 2020, we're pretty good at
Absolutely. 2020 is really good for most people.
Especially for me. If I had 2020, I'd be very happy. Get rid of these things.
Right.
That is one of my goals in life, is to completely eradicate the need for my glasses. I've got halfway there, but I've got to get the rest of the way. And it's stumped me. I haven't found a way around it yet. So if anybody's got some really good clues besides the Bates technique and the book I read, which was Take Off Your Glasses and See, I can highly recommend it. If anybody's listening to this podcast and has got some really good tips, they feel they're good, that'll be good enough for me, your recommendation.
Well, let's make it real simple. I mean, if this is part of the overall, but this is why we want you to use the Elevate Today app, because the Elevate Today app, among other things, has a form built in where you can share stuff. You can actually, it's called
there's so much I don't know, and I know other people who are listening to this have got some knowledge, and if I can tap into that, I'll be so happy.
But just because it's an ask a question form doesn't mean you have to use it to ask a question. You can also share information with it. The whole point is it sends to us, so we get that email when you use the form to send us stuff. So take advantage of that.
There's so much I don't know, Walt. It's unbelievable.
That's what I was saying a moment ago.
I'm really feeling that recently, and I'm probably bringing it up a bit on the podcast because I'm really feeling that vastness of it makes me really excited. It's really making me excited. That amount of stuff that I don't know, and I'm looking for it all over the place now, and I'm opening myself to anybody who's got anything,
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the adventure, because unfortunately, as much as we're enjoying all that stuff coming in, we've run out of time. But thank you again, Louis. We'll pick it up again next week when Amy Blackford's going to be joining us again. So that's something to look
that'll
forward
be great.
to. In the meantime, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.